What we're going to look at in this lesson is exponents and order of operations. Now, first of all, we need to know what simplify means. Simplify means just replacing a numerical expression into its simplest form. You'll be asked to simplify a lot of things in math this year, and all we're asking is not necessarily to solve it, but just to make it as simple and in its simplest form. Now, evaluate is just another fancy way to say to solve. So whenever you say evaluate, that just means to solve. The next thing we're going to look at is a power. Now, a power is in two parts. The first part is a base, and the second part is an exponent. Now this right here, 5 to the 4th, is what we call a power. The 5 is the base, and the base is the number that is used as a factor. So this 5 would be the factor. Now the 4 is an exponent, and an exponent is how many times a number, and that's the base, that number, is used as a factor. So in this power, 5 is the base, and it's being used 4 times. Now let's review order of operations. You have done this since elementary school, so I'm sure you're familiar with PEMDAS, or the saying, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now we don't all have an Aunt Sally, so if maybe Aunt Susan might help, or Aunt Sue, something like that, if that helps, you can always use that phrase. But as we look at this, we remember that P is parentheses. Now back when you were doing elementary and maybe in 6th grade, you always said parentheses for P. But as we get into higher math, we really need to call it grouping symbols because it's more than just parentheses. You can also have brackets. So when you think of parentheses for P, you also need to remember their grouping symbols. E is exponents, M and D is multiplication and divide. And you do these two steps at the same time, but you do it in order of appearance from left to right. So if a division sign comes before a multiplication sign, as you read left to right, you do it first. Same thing with addition and subtraction. Now, if you have more than one grouping symbol in your equation or your expression, what you need to do is make sure you always simplify the innermost grouping symbol first before you go to the outside. So, in this first one, I have 25 minus 8 times 2 plus 3 squared. Now, I need to work with my PEMDAS. P is parentheses or grouping symbols. In this example, we have no grouping symbols. Therefore, we're done with that step. The next one is exponents, and I have 3 to the 2nd power. Now, we need to do this first, and if you plug that in, you know 3 squared is 9. Then we do multiplication and division left to right. My first one I come upon is 8 times 2. So you do 8 times 2, and that's 16. Bring down the add 9 and bring down 25 minus. The next thing is subtraction and addition left to right. Now, you need to do the 25 minus 16 first because it comes first. So you get 9, and then you need to add the 9, so your answer is 18. So your answer to this expression is going to be 18. Now in this second one we have parentheses, so we need to do them first. So I need to do 13 minus 7 and I get 6. Look how I keep it in the parentheses because there is no symbol in between the 15 and 6, and that means it's just understood as multiplication. Then I'm going to do, over here is the second parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and simplify it. So 8 minus 5, and that's 3. Now, I do multiplication and division left to right. So I need to do 15 times 6 first, which is 90. Then I need to divide by 3. And 90 divided by 3 is 30, and 30 would be my answer. In this third one, again, I have 2 sets of parentheses. Now, they're not within each other, so I can do one set and then do the other. This first one, I'm going to do 5 plus 3, and that gives me 8. This second one, I have more than one operation in it. So I need to restart PEMDAS. I don't have parentheses within that, but I do have an exponent that I need to do first before I subtract my 3. So I need to do 5 squared, which is 25. Now I need to subtract 3 from 25, which is 22. Now I can go to multiplication and division since I've already gotten rid of all my parentheses. So I need to do 8 divided by 2, and that's 4, and then add the 22, and that's where you get 26. This last one has 2 sets of grouping symbols. It has the brackets, what we call here, and the parentheses right here. Now, what we need to do first is our grouping symbols. And I said we need to do the innermost grouping symbol first. And that's going to be right here, the 2 squared plus 1. We need to simplify that parentheses before we can work outside of it. So I do 2 squared, that's 4. Now I have 4 plus 1, and that's 5. Notice everything outside of the set of parentheses stayed the same because I haven't done those operations yet. Now I need to do what's inside these brackets. I need to do the multiplication first. So I do 3 times 5, and that's going to be 15. Now I need to add the 4 and the 15 because I'm still in my brackets to get 19. And now at the last step I can do 5 times 19. Which is 95. Evaluating an expression. It's actually very easy. Now, what you need to do when evaluating an expression is you're going to substitute the given values and then just solve. So they'll tell you what x is or what y is. You're always going to substitute the values in parentheses. This will keep your negative numbers negative and your positive numbers positive and won't make you get confused. Okay, so this first one we have evaluate 4c minus 2d. 4c is going to equal 3 and d is going to equal 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 3. Where I see c, I'm going to put 3 in. So instead of 4c, it's going to be 4 times 3. Where this is 4 times c, c is 3, so I do 4 times 3. Now I'm going to take my d, and it's set to equal 2. So where I see d, I'm going to put 2 in. So this is really 2 times d, or this is 2 times 2. Now I use order of operations to solve. I need to do my multiplication first. So I'm going to do 4 times 3, which is 12, and 2 times 2, which is 4. Now I can subtract. So 12 minus 4 is 8. And 8's going to be my answer. Now, we have, for the second one, we have a fairly large one. We have 40 minus d squared plus 3cd, which means 3 times c times d. Now this time c is going to be 2, and d is going to be 5. When I plug this in, I have 40. Now it doesn't have a letter with it, so I leave it as 40. Then I do minus d squared. Well, d is 5, so I'm going to subtract 5 squared. Notice I keep it in parentheses. Then I'm going to add plus 3 times c times d. So it's going to be 3 times 2 times 5. 2 is c and 5 is d. Now we need to solve by order of operations. Alright, so first thing, the parentheses. All my parentheses are simplified. Second is the e, and that's exponents. That means I need to do 5 squared. And 5 squared is 25. The next step, multiplication and division. Well, I have no multiplication or division, but back here I have multiplication. 3 times 2, which is 6, and then 6 times 5 is 30. So all of that is done, and it gets you 30. Now I need to do addition and subtraction left to right. So I have 40 minus 25, which is 15, then the plus 30, which gives you 45. So your answer for this one is just going to be 45.